Yo, shalom.
Shalom, yo.
Yo, sorry for the inconvenience tonight. Sorry to be only on Twitch tonight instead of YouTube.
We're gonna have to re-upload this on YouTube.
It's gonna it's gonna be uploaded on YouTube after the show, man. I'm really sorry about that. We got flagged. Again, and this time they disabled our streaming. So
right.
And get putting out the truth, man. You know, we get hit.
Yeah.
You know, and we got flagged from the last show that we did. I think the Ice Cube. No, I think we got flagged for the Ice Cube one.
Oh.
I think that's what they flagged us for. Yeah, man. I don't know, man. But anyway, they flagged us, man. So I'll be working on getting this back live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the next show. Man, hopefully by Thursday.
Right.
Get something going. So but anyway, welcome. I'm glad y'all, the ones who did get the message that we on Twitch. I'm glad that you're here. And we can see your messages on Twitch, so that's cool. We can interact with you there. I guess you are Twitch. If you are a Twitch user, go ahead and follow, and hit the like. It's now on YouTube right now. But if you're watching the replay, this on YouTube, subscribe, hit the like. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday nights. Definitely, and also join our Discord. If the mind dropping the link to our Discord. In the chat.
And it should also be in the description as well, right?
Yeah, we make sure it's in the description as well, since since we were really around. But if you're on Discord, definitely join us. We have a Discord community here, and we have different channels and everything going on, like music and general chat stuff, articles, Hebrew Israelite stuff, music stuff. So we have a variety of things. So definitely, if you like, join us there. We are there on Discord between shows. Working on the next show. We take suggestions and ideas and, kind of come together there. So definitely do that. But anyway, we're not going to let that stop us, man. It's been crazy day today.
We're still moving.
Yeah, we're still moving. We're going to get to it tonight. Show the school to prison pipeline. A very serious issue. Targeting our people, black people. And especially our black boys. So we're going to break it down what that is and how it affects us.
I even have an interesting story when it comes to that, because back when I was in school, especially in middle school, I'm not gonna tell you the school, but my school, it was predominantly black, Hispanic, and like immigrants that went to the school, and so I was able to see how much they pushed. Instead of pushing our education and things like that, they really focused on punishment. They focused on referrals, and if you got 5 referrals, you were sent to the what they call it, the Give Center. And the Give Center was this. It was one of those schools where it only teaches math, science, and like reading, and you would have to carry around these big textbooks. They had metal detectors, and it was right across the street from the Gwinnett County prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they used to push it really heavy, man. It was to the point where...
What a view from school.
Right. Yeah, so you can look at your future. But they pushed it all the time to the point where it was regular for people to get referrals, and it was regular for people to get paneled. You would come in one day and you wouldn't see somebody. You'd be like, "Oh, where are they at?" And they'd be like, "Oh, they're paneled," and you'd be like, "Oh, okay."
Wow, that's crazy.
There was even one teacher, Miss Davis, who they were gonna fire her because she wasn't giving out enough referrals.
For not meeting the quota.
For not meeting the quota for giving out referrals.
That's some scary stuff, man.
Man, it was bad.
And I'm glad, because I just found out today that they voted for DeKalb County to keep them virtual. I think the rest of the school year. So I think that's a good thing. So yeah, man, we want to get into it. Like I said, we had a little rough start dealing with this streaming thing, but we're gonna make it work.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go right into it.
Get back in the groove.
The school to prison pipeline. It's a term that describes how American kids get pushed out of public schools and into the juvenile and criminal justice systems. Basically, harsh zero-tolerance policies in schools have led to more suspensions, expulsions, and even in-school arrests. Getting suspended or expelled means more time away from school, and it doesn't take an honor student to figure out that's bad news. In fact, expelled and suspended students are more likely to get held back a grade, end up in juvie, or just drop out altogether. And dropping out of high school makes you 3 times more likely to get arrested. Back in school, forget about hallway monitors. Students these days often have to deal with school police. Minor offenses that might have landed you in the principal's office back in the day can now actually lead to your arrest. Students of color and those with disabilities are disproportionately affected. Black students get expelled 3 times more than their white classmates, while a student with a disability is 2 times more likely to get an out-of-school suspension than everyone else. And it's not because these kids are just bad apples. The Justice Department found that Black students got harsher punishments than their white peers for doing the same things. So maybe it's time our education system got schooled?
Yeah, man. So you see how it is, man. I mean, Malcolm X said a long time ago, don't let the enemy teach your kids.
Right.
And so, and that's what it is. I mean, we know how this country oppresses us.
Not only are they teaching your kids, but they also have so many regulations to hold them back in life.
Right.
So that now it's able to pick the creme de la creme of the kids in the school, while the other ones are getting sent to prison. So either way, they're making their money.
Yeah,
they're making
their merchandise. Capitalism, right?
Right, of the Black community, man.
So let's learn how this thing works.
What would you do if your child was placed in handcuffs for crying at school? Well, this was a reality for a 7-year-old Black boy in Missouri, and it isn't rare for Black and brown kids across the country. Whether it's getting arrested for talking back or doodling on a desk, in-school policing is harming students by taking them out of school and helping funnel them into prisons. It's called the School to Prison Pipeline. We're talking about a structure of codes and punishments that criminalizes kids as early as preschool and increases their chances of ending up in the criminal justice system. 99% of New York City school children who were handcuffed in 2016 were Black or Latinx. This happens when school resource officers are called into classrooms to discipline students, sometimes for something as small as violating a dress code or grabbing candy from a teacher's desk. If the offense doesn't lead to an arrest, Black and brown students are still subject to harsher punishments than white students. Black students are 4 times more likely to be suspended than their white peers. Sometimes students are kicked out of school for basically just being Black. Like in cases across the country where Black girls were suspended for rocking braids or an afro. So, where do students go after they've been kicked out of school? Research shows they're 3 times more likely to end up in the juvenile justice system within a year. This is all part of an endless cycle. Once kids touch the juvenile justice system, they're 67% more likely to end up in jail again before they're 25. So, what lessons are schools and police really teaching our kids here? How can kids excel in school if they're always being kicked out of them?
Is that something, man?
And it's interesting, man. Why do they have all those resource officers on the school? You know, they're pushing this. It's like they're pushing the police state on us.
Mm-hmm. I remember, I think it was an interview with Jaden Smith.
Really?
Yeah, and you know, sometimes he be kind of go left field, but this time he said some real things. He was saying he was making a comparison between a public school and a prison.
Yeah.
And he was saying, like, look at the setup, look at the way they do their lunch. Look at the way they're on a bell system. You ring a bell to change. Right. You know what I'm saying? You had the hall monitors, the COs. Like, there's a lot of similar patterns there. Like, damn, like, I didn't peep that.
Right. And then you have the concrete walls.
Concrete walls. The recess or the outside time. You know?
If you're in elementary school.
Right.
Once you actually get in middle school, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah. So, you know, but it's a lot of things set up that seem very similar, you know. So I thought that pretty interesting. But anyway, go to the next one.
America's public schools are failing students in multiple ways. One of the most disruptive is the process by which students are funneled out of public schools and into the juvenile justice system. It's called the School to Prison Pipeline, and there is increasing evidence that it starts as early as preschool. The School to Prison Pipeline primarily victimizes Black students, trapping them in a cycle of incarceration.
I want to believe that every student wants to overcome the societal predictions of what's placed on them because of their race, sex, and their socioeconomic status.
Increasingly, schools are cracking down on small offenses, such as cutting classes or being disrespectful. This is supposed to discourage more serious infractions like drug
they got
or
the
weapons
dog.
possessions. But what constitutes as disobedience or disrespect can be very subjective. A study in Texas found that 97% of the state's suspensions were made for subjective reasons, made at the discretion of school administrators, and black students were 31% more likely to receive discretionary suspensions than white students.
It obviously affects the individual who is actually entering the penal system, but you're affecting communities, you're affecting the economy, you're affecting families, you're affecting school systems.
Disparity can start as early as preschool, when 48% of preschoolers who are suspended more than once are black. African American boys are 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled.
Welcome to the cool.
Yo,
and
shalom.
Black girls are suspended at higher rates than any other race.
I want to believe every student is destined for success. They want to achieve, but more times now we can't control certain things that happen in their homes. I had a student years ago, by the time they got to school, they said, hey, I walked through a crack house facility, prostitution. When I get here, I walk through a metal detector and people bother me. And I haven't eaten since lunch yesterday. And you're asking me to sit here in class and learn? There's a challenge.
When students are kept out of school as punishment, they miss lessons and assignment and fall behind academically. They are more likely to be disciplined again, which can lead to further problems. The Texas study found that students who had been suspended or expelled were twice as likely to drop out. Adding to the problem, police officers stationed inside schools. When these officers react overzealously to minor infractions, they make small problems worse.
I mean, look at
Schools
that.
with officers have 5 times as many arrests for disorderly conduct as schools without them. All 25 of the nation's largest school districts have sworn police officers in at least some schools. As widespread protests emerged after George Floyd's death in police custody, Minneapolis School Board voted unanimously to end its contract with the police department. And there is pressure from students, educators, and activists around the country for other school districts to do the same. And there are other solutions as well.
We need more of our educators to take a genuine interest in the whole student as opposed to what they want to teach on a board and so forth. Do not be quick to actually discipline them, but be more mindful of the predicament they may be coming from and have an understanding of why they're doing what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying take away the discipline, but as you're adding that disciplinary act or that consequence, you're explaining, why am I doing this? You're explaining the reason I am disciplining you is because this happened, and this is how you can fix this down the line. We show a genuine interest of actually being restorative and helping you and moving forward so this won't happen again and be repeated.
There are also proactive solutions, including hiring school guidance counselors instead of police officers. Experts say the best way to prevent incarceration is to provide more equal educational opportunities and to create environments that support all students.
Wow.
Yes, it's something cool I can imagine, and that's the thing. It's really, what's the word? Intimidating to have.
Yeah, in a learning environment.
Right, and just like the brother said in the video, it's good to, because even back when I was in school, they would just discipline you and send you off. There was no kind of talking. There was no kind of lesson. They weren't trying to help you. They just discipline and then they send you on your merry way, and it just goes to show how they attack us on all levels, and they honestly treat you like a prisoner.
Yeah,
you know, and you're supposed to be in an environment where you're supposed to be bettering yourself and learning how to become a better person, become a member of society, and all this, that, and the third.
Yeah, I mean, you had a little bit worse because, like, you know, you younger than I am, so you know.
What's up, Trinity?
What's up, hey? Yeah, you're younger than I am. So when I was in high school, I didn't have a police officer, but I did have a resource officer at my school. But mind you, I did not go to the neighborhood. I didn't go to the high school in my neighborhood.
Right.
I mean, I was raised here in Atlanta, Georgia, and during that time, we had even in the 90s, we had an integration program called M2M. Right. So you had the magnet students for the gifted, and then you still had the M2M program to take black kids to a majority white school.
Right.
And I was one of those students. So I had to take 2 school buses to get to school and 2 buses to get home.
Man.
Okay, my first bus is at 6 a.m. They take me to the nearest college parking lot. It would be like 50 buses in a big square or circle. They blow the horn. We switch buses. The second bus takes us to our school.
Yeah.
But you know, we young kids, we fall asleep. It's early in the morning to be up. You know what I mean? So if you did not wake up to switch your bus, it's possible you woke up in a different school.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, but the better school I went to, they only had a resource officer. But I wouldn't be surprised the ones in my neighborhood probably did have a police officer.
Right.
And then of course, I was technically in Metro Atlanta, but I'm pretty sure the city of Atlanta and some of those schools actually had like the metal detectors and other other protocols going on there. But we still had the in-school suspensions and it's scary.
Disciplinary actions that hold you back.
Yeah, so even by me go to a better school, the black kids still punish more. I mean, either way. So probably even worse because there's a white school.
Right, exactly.
They probably even want us there. But yeah, that is very scary. The next one here. No, okay. This one, how they punish the black kids. Go to this one.
In September of 2019, a 6-year-old student named Kaya was sitting in her school's office.
Yeah, this one's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Come with us now.
That's a police officer. This video comes from his body camera. At first, it seems like Kaya doesn't know what's happening.
What are those for? No, I wanted them done. Oh, I was in school. I just saw you.
Earlier that day, Kaya had a tantrum. 3 school employees said that she had kicked them. The school called the police, who arrested Kaya on charges of misdemeanor battery.
What the hell?
The police dropped the charges after Kaya's grandmother sent this video to the Orlando Sentinel. Kaya's case isn't...
Let that have been a white girl.
Yeah, that's never.
Oh, let them go and arrest a 6-year-old white girl.
Yeah, never call cops on a white girl.
Oh, hell no.
Let alone put them in handcuffs.
Right, and put them in the back of a cop car. What the hell?
An isolated incident.
A 5-year-old girl being handcuffed by police in Florida.
For a year, he could not sleep alone.
He put handcuffs on me.
Tossed to the ground by a school resource officer.
What you're seeing are the effects of a larger problem in American schools. The U.S. doesn't treat all students equally. But if we wanted to, we could do something about that. The next president could decide if that happens.
Cap.
Yeah, that's
In
probably going to be worse.
2016, researchers at Yale showed teachers this video clip of 4 preschool students. Their instructions: look for misbehavior and click when you see it. The study was kind of deceptive. None of the kids in the video actually misbehaved. The researchers were using eye tracking software. What they actually wanted to study was who the teachers were watching. Both black and white teachers spent significantly more time watching the black boy in the video. This study showed that even preschool teachers can treat kids differently.
Ain't that something?
Right.
None of the kids did anything bad. But they were distracted to see what the eyes were looking at.
Right. And you see who they concentrated on. It just goes to show the American tradition. Because they concentrate on black issues and what we're doing. That's why you got more police in our areas and all this and the third.
At that age, already you're looking at the black boy.
And when you get that negative attention, negative things come from that.
Yep.
Based on their race without even realizing it. Look elsewhere in the U.S. school system and you'll see this show up in other ways, like at this middle school in Bryan, Texas. They gave students tickets for offenses like disrupting class or using profanity.
Right.
Black students were 4 times more likely than white students to receive those tickets. Nationwide, black boys miss way more school due to suspensions than any other group. And this can start a kind of chain reaction. Missing weeks of school due to suspensions makes students much more likely to drop out. Without a diploma, you're much less likely to earn a living wage and much more likely to be incarcerated. All this missing school is helping to drive the highest poverty and incarceration rates in the developed world. So it's worth asking, how'd we get here? In 1964, President Lyndon Johnson created a new federal office accountable to the president, the Office for Civil Rights.
We covered this in a previous show about Lyndon B. Johnson and his role in the civil rights movement.
Right.
Very interesting.
You should watch it when you get a chance.
Its first task was to desegregate public schools in the South.
But soon, they started noticing that some schools were segregating their students without actually calling it segregation.
A lot of the black students would be labeled disabled and removed from the mainstream classroom. So they wound up segregated.
Daniel Lowson studies school discipline. For years, he's been sounding the alarm about how much school black students are missing due to suspensions. The data he uses in his reports comes from the Office for Civil Rights. In the 1970s, they started requiring schools to report how many students they classified as disabled, plus suspensions and expulsions, all broken down by race and gender. Over the next few decades, those numbers went up as more punitive ideas about discipline took hold in American schools. Well, in some schools.
Gangs and drugs have taken over our streets and undermined our schools.
The idea that if you don't, throw the book at kids when they're young for every little thing, that they're going to turn into criminals. There's never any research to show that it actually worked. You never see that in schools serving mostly white kids.
But in 2011, a new report out of Texas started to cast doubt on that approach. The study looked at discipline records for almost 1 million students. It tracked the same kids from 7th grade all the way through high school. The results were stunning. Nearly 60% of students had been suspended or expelled at least once. The study also showed that black students facing school discipline for the first time tended to get harsher punishments than white students. And the more disciplinary violations a student received, the more likely they were to drop out. Clearly, Texas had a big problem. The question now was if the problem was bigger than Texas. To figure that out, the Obama administration turned to the data set that the Office for Civil Rights had built. That's how they learned this was a nationwide problem.
African American students are over 3 times more likely than their white peers to be suspended or expelled, often for very similar offenses.
They also discovered that the vast majority of suspensions were for behaviors like talking back, using profanity, or violating the dress code.
Non-violent student behaviors, many of which once meant a phone call home.
The administration started investigating.
That's where I remember a lot of the disciplinary actions were along those lines, dress code, talking back, this and the third, but it added up.
Yeah.
And so if you talk back 5 times, you got paneled. Right. You got sent to the Gibbs Center for talking back.
Yeah.
Or for even talking in the class or dress code.
Yeah, but that changed because I wish we could show in tonight's show how they changed things to zero tolerance policies and how it's targeted. How it's our disadvantage.
Investigating school districts where the numbers were the most damning. One of those districts was Bryan, Texas, home of the discipline tickets. In 2013, a woman named Marjorie Holman filed a complaint after her 12-year-old son was suspended for defending himself from a bully and had to appear in adult criminal court. The Office of Civil Rights opened an investigation in Bryan, along with hundreds of other school districts.
If you can't justify what you're doing and it's having a harmful impact on one group more than others, you have to replace it with something else.
But we don't actually know if those changes made a difference, because the most recent data on the Office of Civil Rights website is from the 2015-2016 school year. The year after that, things started to change.
The 51-50 vote to confirm Betsy DeVos.
The vice president votes in the affirmative and the nomination is confirmed.
In 2017, the Office of President Trump's new education secretary, Betsy DeVos, sent a memo to the staff at the Office of Civil Rights. This one super jargony line in the memo signaled a huge shift. OCR will only apply a systemic or class action approach where the individual complaint allegations themselves raise systemic or class-wide issues. Translation, no more looking for patterns in the data. If the office got a complaint like Marjorie Holman's, they would look for one thing: written or verbal proof that an individual teacher or administrator had punished Marjorie's son more harshly because he was black.
We're not going to question that unless...
Now imagine how hard it is to find that evidence. People aren't going to explicitly say that they're being prejudiced or racist or whatever.
Right. They know. She knew what she was doing.
Right.
There's the smoking gun of intentional racism.
That's what happened in Bryan, Texas. When Betsy DeVos took office, the investigation into Bryan's schools was close to wrapping up. The final report concluded that Black students were subject to disparate treatment when compared to white students engaged in the same or similar conduct. They had dozens of recommendations for the district: revise their discipline code, hire mentors and social workers, extra training for teachers. DeVos's team scrapped the report and closed the investigation with no finding of wrongdoing and no suggestions for improvement.
Wow.
If you look closely at this clip, you can see Joe Biden standing right behind President Clinton as he signs the 1994 crime bill.
Good
That
old
bill
Joe.
ushered in new tough-on-crime policies that devastated Black communities. As a senator, Biden played a key role in getting the bill passed.
We have predators on our streets. They are beyond the pale, many of those people.
And since then, he's had to confront that history.
I haven't always been right. There's systematic racism that most of us whites don't like to acknowledge even exists. It's been built into every aspect of our system.
This policy plan comes from...
All right, now I'm pretty sure that was taken out of context because as we've seen, we've covered this. Joe Biden is not he hasn't repented on what he's done. He's actually said like he
defended his decision.
Yeah, he defended his decision for the crime bill.
Yeah, because those are a lot of jump shots that they did right there.
Right.
But if you go back and you can see it for yourself, you find an interview that he did with Charlamagne the God. He defended it because Hillary Clinton. Right. She tried to backstep about her involvement in it, but he said Hillary was mistaken and said he was justified in doing the crime bill, and he said he had the endorsement by the NAACP, which you already know who owns that.
White folk, but also people in or Black Boule.
Right, and the Black Caucus, Boule. So, but he never backtracked what he did. And then, mind you, it wasn't just one crime bill. He signed multiple crime bills over his 40-year career.
Right.
From the Biden campaign. In the section titled School Discipline, it says that Biden would reinstate Obama's discipline guidelines and would push for every state to submit a plan for reducing the use of policies and practices that push kids out of school. Some people believe that all racism is explicit. A nasty slur, a whites-only sign, a burning cross. It's unmistakable and it's on purpose. But there's another way of understanding racism. That laws and policies can have racist outcomes even if they don't mention race at all. That you don't always need a smoking gun to do a whole lot of damage.
Trini Smooth, we're glad you're here. Sorry for the inconvenience that we're not on YouTube tonight.
Right.
We have flagged and we have to. I'll try to go ahead and try to get that resolved tomorrow.
Yeah.
We are live on Twitch, but after tonight's show, I will upload it to YouTube. So sorry about that, but I'm glad you're here.
Yes, we appreciate you.
Yeah, but man, it's ridiculous. But I didn't like the way Vox did the jump shots of Biden because he did not backtrack.
They're reaching with that.
Yeah, they really were. All right, the next one is stuck in the school to prison pipeline.
They really don't.
I was born into a homeless family, and I grew up in the slums of San Francisco.
I mean, I've been on probation since, I mentioned earlier, since 8th grade.
The first gun I ever had pointed in my head was when I was 12 years old by a police officer.
Typical story, you could say.
That's the first time I guess I was perceived as a problem.
I got involved, I got caught up in the system, then they sent me to group homes, and they arrested me again.
I spent 90% of my teenage life in juvenile hall, in the juvenile system.
Next thing you know, I'm 17 going on 18, I'm still on. I'm just like, oh my God, like these guys will never let me be free, they'll never leave me alone. Any little thing, oh, you missed school, we'll lock you up.
And that's where the school to prison pipeline starts.
So the CARE program is Center for Academic Reentry and Empowerment, CARE. And basically, they're a truancy program in the form of a school.
disconnected from their school. They end up in the streets and they end up in harm's way, and then ultimately they end up in prison or dead. We address the behavior, we peel back the layers, and oftentimes we discover it's learned, it's trauma, it's things that have happened in the community.
How I first got under probation was an incident with a teacher at George Washington High School. We was both in the hallways, I was bouncing my ball, and he said I hit him. I did not hit that teacher.
After I got arrested for something I didn't do, my whole mindset of the system is I don't want nothing to do with it. You guys are something else. You guys set people up for failure.
But as I go back and I recollect, I could have easily got taken to the principal's office instead of having me carried out in the back of a police car.
When I finally came back here and came into my senses, they helped me look for jobs.
We provide services for them to find their self-worth and become self-sufficient.
I hear a lot of kids always say things like, well, you guys actually care about us. You guys actually have our back.
Most kids are stomped on and crushed early.
It's very difficult to transition, to turn your life around. And that's why we have this program.
Man, that's scary.
Right.
Yeah, so you destroying these lives at a young age, and for them to be cycling through the system like that when they so young.
I mean,
and that's all they know.
Going through prison and that the CARE program, that is something good because there's so many people that have had those problems due to the disciplinary actions in school that it's hard for them to catch up.
Yeah,
it's hard for them to get.
Once you behind, you behind.
Right.
It's hard to get back to catch up and get ahead again.
Exactly.
Do you want to still go do both of them, or do you want to skip one, or?
I can't really see with my glasses, fortunately. Surprise me.
Okay.
I'm Kira Wilmot. I am 19 years old. I'm a sophomore at Florida Polytechnic University.
Wait, this one's good.
And I'm here to talk to you about school-to-prison pipeline, of course. Now, what is the school-to-prison pipeline? The school-to-prison pipeline is when school-age children are being arrested and even possibly charged with felonies or processed into the justice system. As we have first, we have Celicia Johnson. She was 6 years old, and she was escorted into her principal's office for throwing toys in her kindergarten classroom. They called police on her, and she was arrested for throwing a tantrum.
You can pause that right fast.
Dominic.
Now, who the hell calls the police on a little child? Like grown adults calling the police on children.
You can't handle a 6-year-old.
Right. Or call their parents.
Right.
Man.
Right. That's ridiculous.
Green was 14 years old, and he was playing a prank on a teacher that he didn't like. He logged into the school computer, which, by the way, only the password was only the teacher's last name.
Karens.
And changed the school's background. And he was arrested and charged with cyber hacking, and his charges have yet to be cleared. Most recently, Ahmed Mohammed was arrested for bringing a clock to school. Homemade clock. He brought it to his teacher to show her, and she freaked out, called police, and thought it was a bomb. Of course, after a week, his charges were dropped, and he was offered a scholarship to MIT. He went to Twitter, he went to Google, and all these amazing offers happened.
I remember that one.
Yeah,
I think
was big.
Yeah, I think Obama stepped in on that one. And
okay.
Yeah, he did something, right?
I think he did.
Yeah, he did. I think. Yeah, because they became national news.
Barack Hussein.
Yeah.
Obama.
But for me, it wasn't as easy as just a week of charges getting dropped. I was assigned a science fair project, and I had no idea what to do. A friend suggested doing a volcano, but my teacher said no volcanoes, no baking soda and vinegar volcanoes. So my friend said, why not use different ingredients, like toilet bowl cleaner or an aluminum foil? My idea was to either slow the reaction or completely dissipate the reaction, like all the way, so it doesn't react at all. So I was bringing in the project to show my teacher, and I didn't know how a toilet bowl cleaner aluminum foil reacted. I thought it was just like a baking soda and vinegar reaction. My friends were just as curious as I and asked me to show them, so I went ahead and showed them. The only thing that happened was the lid popped off and a bit of smoke came out of the bottle. But the dean of discipline wasn't far away. He heard the pop and asked me what was going on. And then I told him it was just a science project and he was on his way. But just before lunch, I was pulled out of class and told to write a written statement about what happened that morning.
My gosh.
I was sat down in the resource officer's office and told I'd be arrested for 2 felony bomb charges.
Bomb charges.
They talked to my teacher. My teacher told them there was no science project assigned whatsoever. My sister had to come down and get my stuff, and I was arrested, handcuffed, drove in the back of a police car to the Juvenile Justice Center, where I was processed. They took fingerprints and mugshots.
So extra.
My mom came to pick me up. She didn't even get a call saying
That's
your
crazy.
student is in trouble. She got the call that your student has been arrested and is being has already been processed. My mom picked me up. We went home, and as soon as we got home, it was already on the news. Kira Wilmot, 16-year-old Florida student, made a bomb and brought it to school and detonated it on school property. We had to get a lawyer, and for the time being, I was suspended from school for 10 days and being recommended for expulsion. I had to go to an alternative school, and it felt like prison. Every morning you had to walk through a metal detector.
That's what the Gift Center was. It was an alternative school. Yeah.
Make sure you're not carrying anything. And the curriculum there was stuff I was learning from 8th grade. But finally, after fighting, after a month, the charges were dropped. After petitions and public outcry. And then there was a phone call, first to my lawyer, to my mom, to me. It was Homer Hickam. I don't know if you guys know who Homer Hickam is, but he was arrested in high school for a rocket that he made. And it wasn't even his rocket, it was from a mine. They thought it was one of his rockets. I don't know if you guys have read the book Rocket Boys or watched October Sky, but he's a really cool guy. And he invited me to Advanced Space Academy, which is the picture on the far right there. He found out that I had a twin sister and raised money to have her go too. I was eventually let back into my old high school and graduated from there. But I still wasn't done. My charges were still there, and when I was applying for college, I had to check the box that I was arrested. I got a call from one of the admission counselors asking about the incident, and I had to tell her everything, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna make it. But finally, I got in. So the takeaway of this, all these kids here, never give up on your dreams. After going to Space Academy, I realized what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. And out there right now, like Danielle said, there are kids who are imagining, and like Nikhil said, there are kids who are learning things much faster than us adults can. And it scares adults. So what they do is they're arresting kids, putting them away so they can't build the future. But we need our kids to build the future. We need teachers, we need lawyers, we need all these kids to build the future. And we need all of you, whatever your dream is, to continue forward with that dream and never give up.
Man,
I mean, these kids are making science fair projects, and these grown adults are acting like a bunch of cavemen.
You can even hear it in her voice that she's still affected. She's still traumatized by that.
She shook up from that, man. And I don't blame her. It's a lot. It was an emotional experience.
Yeah.
To be viewed in that way for something so innocent.
Yeah.
You know, man.
And like you said, man, if that was a white girl, that wouldn't have happened.
Oh, definitely not.
You know. Yo, this next video is from Cannon's class. Recently with Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Umar be off sometimes, but when it comes to school psychology and students and stuff, like to me, he knows his stuff.
Right, because I mean, at the end of the day, he's still a doctor.
He's still a doctor.
So when it comes to that's his realm.
Yeah. So, but he's had some interesting things to say, and I thought it was really dope. So we're going to take a listen to some of that.
F 715.
I was in Philly working as a school psychologist.
Oh, so we can start there.
And then the invitation started coming, and I said, okay, you got to make a decision because this is taking you away from your practice.
Right.
You know, I evaluate children for special ed. I can't do that and travel.
Right.
So I decided to sacrifice the testing and do the traveling, and it was a good decision because I was able to help push the message, not only the Pan-African message, but also the school to prison pipeline message, to tell parents, stop getting your children tested, stop putting them on Ritalin, stop buying into these diagnoses because they're not solutions. They are feeding the school to prison pipeline.
Right, and I mean that's been one of your strong messages, and I tapped into it pretty early, just based off of feeling like I was almost a part of that pipeline. Somebody that, you know, second grade diagnosed with ADHD, and you know, my family was challenged to put me on some type of medication, but otherwise they gave me some. It was interesting. They gave me another type of test that I actually scored the third highest in the nation. And then so from that process of thinking like something might be wrong with this child, it then implemented me into the GATE program in California with the Gifted and Talented Education.
Absolutely.
And from there, you know, even my grandmother having that foresight that, man, maybe if we challenge him, you know, and he won't act out in that certain way. So beginning to getting me involved in everything from, you know, other languages and music, and for there, it's like, it's a simple concept for me. It's like, you know, a lot of us, we don't have learning disabilities, but we're so far advanced in our understanding and our movement that we're just not challenged.
Absolutely. In fact, you just basically explain what's really going on with black boys and so-called ADHD. It's not an overactive brain. It's above average intelligence.
Yeah, keep positive refer. Because, man, I know a decent bit of people who were diagnosed with ADHD, and you know, the medications, it just dulls you down. You know, it takes the life out of you. Yeah. But, man, like one of my friends, man, and he supposedly had ADHD. When I tell you, man, he would just learn. You know, he would do research. He would come in, have notebooks just full of information, this, that, and the third. It's that active mind, you know. But they want to make it seem like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean they can't handle it.
People learn differently.
Yeah, I mean
at different levels, man.
Right, and it's hard to adjust to. You have an overcrowded classroom and different skill sets, and like you could be the most intelligent student in your class, but the student right next to you, probably reason he's there because teacher got tired of dealing with him, so they kept passing him through. Right. And you know he shouldn't be in your grade, but he's in there. Right. And so how the teacher going to teach both of y'all, and y'all on two different levels?
Exactly.
You know, and like I say, you be the one to get punished for being hyperactive or whatever this may be.
Right. The issue is that public school is not designed to identify black boys who are gifted. The gifted movement was started in the aftermath of school desegregation, 1954, to resegregate black kids from white kids. So after the Supreme Court said you can't use race to separate the students anymore, white power said, well, we need a new excuse.
Right.
So they invented the mentally gifted movement.
Right.
So instead of saying we're putting the black child in a separate class or putting the white child in a separate class because they're black or white, we're excluding the white kid from the black class because they're too intelligent. So it's not about race.
Wow.
It's about intelligence.
Wow,
so
that makes sense.
became the new strategy to resegregate the students.
Wow.
You see.
Yeah.
So if we're using giftedness to explain away black kids away from the white kids, we can't possibly use giftedness to help support black children. You see. But the problem with MG, Nick, is that not all the white kids are gifted either.
Right.
See. So even though you were helping some of them get out, a lot of them weren't smart enough to qualify for MG. So then they had another problem. They said, well, what about the ones who don't make it? We still don't want them learning with the black kids. So that's when they invented the learning disability. But in my work, at least half the black boys I've ever evaluated were mentally gifted, not ADHD. But the school has a one-track mind. They are trained to look for problems, not talents.
Right.
One more point to that. Mental giftedness used to be part of special ed law. That means what? Special ed is money.
Right.
Whenever I say a kid is retarded, autistic, emotionally disturbed, reading disabled, math disabled, their name goes into a computer. That goes to the State Department of Education. They get a welfare check by the end of the month for that child. That school does.
The school does.
Special ed is money.
Right.
Special ed is money. It ain't about helping nobody.
Right.
Now, gifted used to be in there. That means what? When you were tested for gifted and qualified, your school district got money for you.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But when former President George W. Bush reauthorized special ed law in 2004, actually before he reauthorized it, back in 97, I want to say, they took MG out of special ed law.
And that's on.
You no longer
No, I'm just saying, like, ain't that something?
Find smart black children.
Right.
Since they've taken that out, if you look at the gifted rates of black kids, it's almost non-existent.
Wow.
Retarded up here, reading disabled up here, ADHD up here, MG all the way down here, and it's even worse now because they're not being subsidized to find the talented black boys.
Wow. So that brings up an interesting point that you discuss in your book about labeling. On both ends of the spectrum. You know what I mean? Like a kid being gifted, a kid having mental illness. At some point, yourself being a child psychologist, you have to actually apply those labels to different individuals. Just that concept of, compartmentalizing children. Ultimately, is that helpful? Or ultimately,
no, it's very unethical. To me, it's a human rights abuse. And I would even argue that the mental health exploitation of black children and the miseducation of black children not only constitutes a modern day Holocaust, I think it's one of the greatest examples of human rights abuse in the world today.
Right.
Like we hear about the genocides and we hear about hunger and we hear about political oppression. But what about the miseducation and mental health exploitation of black children? It's right up there.
Right.
But to your point, 3 reasons I have an issue with child mental health, even though I'm in child mental health. Issue number 1, children are not self-referred for therapy. What does that mean? If I'm 8 years old, right? And somebody says I need an ADHD evaluation because I'm too hyper or I cannot focus, did I ask for that evaluation?
Not at all.
How many 3rd grade black boys have you seen go looking for medication?
Right.
They don't.
Right.
It's the adults who are inconvenienced by the child who say he needs to be tested. You see that?
And they didn't have the
child
patience
ain't
to
looking
do
for
it.
no medicine
Yeah.
or no therapy.
Right.
He loves being who he is.
Right.
So the first ethical issue is children don't refer themselves.
Right.
It's adults that force them to get evaluated.
Right.
It's adults that give them the Ritalin, the Adderall, the Concerta, the Vyvanse, the Metadate, not the child.
Right.
So when some people say, I'm an adult and I have ADHD, the medication works for me.
Right.
That's not a contradiction with the problem I have with childhood psychiatrics because you're an adult.
Right.
So you can refer yourself.
Exactly.
You can also speak eloquently as to the side effects that medicine is causing in you.
Right.
But that 8-year-old
Can't.
can express the fact that I can't go to sleep because of this medicine.
Right.
You know, that my hunger, my appetite is different because of this medicine.
Right.
You see, I'm sleeping too much because of this medicine. That child isn't old enough to know that that medicine might affect his ability to have children later on in life. They don't know that that medicine is beginning to trigger psychotic symptoms, homicidal, suicidal ideation. So if an adult wants to take medicine, that's your prerogative. You're an adult, you can protect yourself.
Right.
An 8-year-old cannot.
Can you pause it real fast?
Ethical
And another thing with the medicine is, when you're an adult, your brain is a lot more developed. But when you're giving a medicine to an 8-year-old, their brain is still developing.
Right.
And this thing attacks the brain specifically. So imagine how much it screws them up.
Right. They don't even know it.
Right.
Violation is it's all about the money. The American Psychiatric Association is indebted to the drug companies. They run it.
Right.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
We talk about politicians being indebted to the corporations.
Yeah.
Well, the American Psychiatric Association is indebted to the drug companies.
Right.
All of which publicly trade on Wall Street.
Wow.
And they fund the diagnoses.
Wow.
Because they create these medications that need to be sold so they can make dividends for the investors.
Right.
So they go to the APA and say, listen, we got a new medicine, so you got to create a disorder to feed this medicine.
Wow.
How much do they make off ADHD meds a year? $30 billion.
$30 billion?
$30 billion a year.
Shoot, that's the drug game right there.
It's the drug game. Speaking of that, that's my third issue.
Yeah.
The Drug Enforcement Agency of America classifies Ritalin as a Schedule II drug. Ritalin is in the same category as opium and cocaine. This is the government.
Wow.
Ritalin is in the same category as opium and cocaine.
Right,
so let me get this
something.
right.
Runaway
You got
capitalism.
Black men going to jail out the wazoo for selling crack, right?
Right.
Most black men in jail are there for non-violent, drug-related offenses.
Right.
If selling drugs is so bad, if using drugs is so bad, if it's bad enough to send a boy's father to jail, how can it also be good enough to give to his son so he can sit still long enough to learn about Helen Keller, Anne Frank, and Christopher Columbus?
Wow.
If drugs are wrong, drugs are wrong.
Right.
You can't say it's wrong for adults to use them, but we can give them to children so they can get an education. That's a total contradiction. Crack is crack no matter what name you sell it under. Ritalin, which is methylphenidate, okay, is only a molecule away from crack. It has the same side effects as crack.
Wait, Ritalin is a molecule away from crack.
From crack cocaine. It's synthesized coke.
Wow.
You see, so when they talk about, mass incarceration of black males, and at the same time, you're hyper medicating black boys. Look at this. You're mass incarcerating black men for selling drugs.
Right.
But you're hyper medicating black boys with the same drug that sent his father to jail.
Right.
That is hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
And no one's calling the United States Department of Education, the pharmaceutical industry, nobody's calling the American Psychiatric Association to task because so much money is being made from this. Everybody eats. The psychiatrists eat. The
Thank you,
schools
Mason.
eat, the clinic eat. The therapists eat. Even the parents can get Social Security money.
Right.
Everybody is eating off the modern day medical lynching, mental health lynching of black boys.
Man, that's something.
Man. And I didn't even know the whole thing about Ritalin being one molecule away from crack.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Man,
with chemical makeup, and how they classify the drugs and everything.
Right.
Yeah, Mike, you dropped the link to the Discord. Welcome if y'all here joining us tonight on Twitch. Normally we on YouTube. Well, we also on Twitch anyway, but we mainly on YouTube. But YouTube banned us tonight. So that's why we broadcasting on Twitch.
They were not playing nice tonight.
Yeah, they were not playing nice with us today, but that's fine because after tonight's broadcast, we will upload it to YouTube as normal.
And try to figure everything out.
Yeah, we try to work everything out. But between shows, we are over here on Discord. You can't find us. We have different channels here. Music, articles, general chat, show ideas, announcements. So we're always working on different stuff here. So definitely, you're just not joining us. Definitely join our Discord.
And if you have any suggestions for building our Discord, we're
that too. Yeah, we still adding channel to Discord. So you know, you have suggestions to pop off. We open to that as well.
Yeah.
But you're right. You're getting kids addicted to drugs, right? So they used to popping pills all their life. Become an adult, ain't nothing to take anything else, anything heavier.
I think it was this rapper from Chattanooga, Isaiah Rashad, that said, "I've been on pills since a little one. Start with Advil, then we level up."
Yep, that's it. Like it's the pattern. Yep. This one going into ADHD.
Tonight, a new study is raising questions, a lot of questions among parents of children diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Researchers from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention finding disparities between white and black children. The study shows black children appear to be more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD and other learning disabilities than white kids. But CDC researchers say they don't know why, and their findings are opposite of what has long been believed, that white children suffer from ADHD in greater numbers than minority children. One possible reason for the change, access to health care, appears to be greater for white children than blacks, and therefore increasing the number of diagnoses.
That's really the only problem with playing that particular video, right? Where they said don't even know, like they can't explain it, what I mean?
And so they're just coming up with stuff.
But you see how Dr. Umar Johnson, he just explained it. It's about the money.
Yeah, he broke it down, man.
And, and they always did an excuse about black people lack of access to health care for disparities. They always use it as a way out. You know what I'm saying? Case in point with the pandemic early this year with the C thing. If y'all remember back in like March or even like February when things started popping off, you didn't hear about black people dying.
They were acting like this was the white man's.
I mean, it was memes out about how black people was immune. Like like it was like no black deaths for a good 2-3 months.
Exactly.
It wasn't until like around May, all of a sudden the narrative shifted, and now it's like, oh, we the most exposed to a lack of health care. But like, well, if that's the case, you should have been the first ones dying, not the last ones to die.
Right. And now Bill, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that.
You can't say the word, man. They may pull us off the air.
Yeah.
I've been blocked off one platform for the night.
Right.
Yo, so anyway, right. This is now the next video is about why the American public schools are failing.
Yeah.
All our lives, we're told that education is the key to success and that having a high school and college diploma will open up career doors. But not everyone gets the same access to a good quality education.
Growing up, being in Chicago public schools,
You know, I always was in classrooms feeling like, you know, I wasn't learning anything.
Hey guys, I'm Dina, this is AJ Plus, and today we're looking at the challenges that students of color face trying to get an education in our school system. People of color make up 40% of our student population, but only 17% of our teaching force. And that's a major obstacle preventing students from getting an equal education because a lack of teacher diversity impacts student performance. In the last decade, we've lost 26,000 African American teachers, even though teaching as a profession has been growing. AJ Plus recently visited Chicago, a city that's lost 40% of its black teachers since 2002. We spoke to G2 Brown, a community activist there, who told us how the schools have changed in his lifetime.
Went to elementary school with a diverse teaching staff, so I had the veteran black teachers, but I had white teachers. I had a Puerto Rican teacher, right? I had love from all shades, but I was able to look at a teacher and see myself, which is dangerous today because with the advent of privatization, black teachers are disappearing from the public school system. And so that's my son's reality.
This is also the reality for students all over the United States, including New Orleans, which has lost more than 60% of its black teachers, and Los Angeles, where there's been a 33% decrease since 2002. So why is this happening? Well, many factors are contributing to the decline, including low retention rates for black teachers. These losses are also the result of the massive restructuring of education that's taken place in the last few years, including the closing of low-performing schools and their replacement with charter schools. Many of these low-performing schools were staffed with minority teachers who had roots in the community, and when they're gone, students suffer. In addition to providing students of color with strong role models, the number of black teachers directly influences how black students perform academically. It significantly decreases the likelihood of black male youth from dropping out of high school. And a Vanderbilt study found that black students were enrolled in gifted programs half as often as their white peers, even when they had the same achievement scores. But that gap narrowed dramatically when high-achieving black students had a black teacher. Other studies have shown that white teachers have lower expectations for their black students, assuming they won't graduate from high school or earn a college degree, and that those lower standards may be self-fulfilling prophecies.
You're supposed to look at that little boy, and despite the fact that little boy may not comb his hair, despite the fact that little boy doesn't talk a lot, you have to watch them, you have to engage with that child, so you start realizing what they do well. Then you use what they do well to build their sense of self, and then you begin to challenge them to do more.
The number of minority teachers also impacts how students of color are disciplined. And discipline plays a critical role in this equation because it determines whether or not students are in the classroom at all. You may have heard of zero tolerance policies, a trend among schools to crack down on minor infractions with harsh penalties, like suspension for being late or violating the dress code. The rise of these policies nationwide led to a doubling in the number of students suspended between 1974 and 2001. Zero tolerance also resulted in the increased presence of police officers in schools, which is another part of a trend you may have heard about, the school-to-prison pipeline. The school-to-prison pipeline describes how students are increasingly being punished in the juvenile or criminal justice systems rather than by school officials for things like cutting class. This is a problem because it labels kids criminals and tends to push them out of the education system altogether. And these policies are disproportionately applied to minority students. A report by the U.S. Department of Education found that black students are suspended and expelled 3 times more often than white students. And the race of teachers also plays a role. A researcher at the University of California, Santa Barbara found that black students are more likely to be considered, quote, disruptive than white students. But this changes if a black student has a teacher who's of the same race. All of these factors are on top of a bigger problem, a segregated education system. After years of efforts to desegregate America's schools, there's still proof that things are starting to look like they once did, separate and unequal. Brown versus Board of Education was supposed to fix this, but 6 decades later, studies repeatedly show that schools responsible for the education of black and Latino children are underserved, underfunded.
You know, this documentary kind of showed a contradiction here because you just proved how black students perform better with black teachers.
Right.
But yet, like, you flip the switch and you want them to be integrated.
That's something. Man, and you see how they always push that, but and even with Board versus Brown versus Board of Education, all these different things, whenever they set up a law, they slowly try to repeal it. Yeah. But we keep trying to run to these white people because we know that wherever they go, the resources will be.
Right.
But we have to build the resources for ourselves and be self-sufficient.
And we know, and we covered this on a previous show of why they went the integration route, because we know that the NAACP was behind most of that, and that's what they did, you know, and they had their own agenda of why they pushed us to integrate, even though these same people don't integrate themselves to this day.
It's very interesting.
Right, very interesting.
And often without experienced teachers. Today, the average white student attends a school in which 75% of their peers are also white. Meanwhile, Black and Latino students typically attend schools where their peers are 2/3 people of color and less than 1/3 white. That means that schools today are almost as segregated as they were in the 1960s. So what happened exactly?
What's the problem with being around your own people?
Right.
As long as the school is being fair.
Right, and that's a problem. It's separate but not equal, and which we understood from previous show that the way schools are funded.
Right.
They're funded by the property taxes and not even across the board.
Right.
Well, in short, there was limited oversight of these desegregation efforts. In 1971, the Supreme Court ruled U.S. public schools could be desegregated through busing, and it worked. Minority students began performing better academically at integrated schools. But over time, many school districts across the country were released from court-ordered desegregation plans that eventually allowed for the schools to become segregated again. And this has led to widening gaps in test scores between white, Black, and Latino students across subjects. So, segregated schools and resources, fewer minority teachers, and higher rates of discipline are all making it harder for students of color to receive a quality education in this country. There's a lot more we need to do to level the playing field and ensure that all American children have the opportunity to realize their full potential.
So we already know what the issue is with education.
Right.
So now we're about to go into how the school system should run.
Right, some solutions for it.
Yeah, some solutions. We already covered the problem tonight. We look at some schools that seem to get it right.
And one thing you have to consider when it comes to education, the American school system is actually very low on the world plane.
Yeah, you're right, Trinity Smooth. They need to eliminate that, but you know why they do that, though.
Oh, yeah.
It should be a federal thing where make sure all schools are funded equally, but
systematic.
Right, we already know.
System.
Right, you already know. So we're gonna go across the world. And we're going to see how schools are ran overseas that are better.
It's 8 a.m. on a cold morning in the suburbs of Helsinki, and these primary school children are getting ready for class. This morning's lesson, ancient history.
Well, they are reading with pairs some text about Egyptian ancient life. They are reading, and then I'm gonna ask something, what did they find out from the book? I think we all are ready now.
This is a school system that for years has been among the world's best.
And then what about this gold one? Yeah, Minttu, please.
Ja miehetkin, molemmat on käyttänyt meikkiä.
And yet these kids will spend half as much time in a classroom as Australian children.
When you go to the first grade, when you are 7 years old, the amount of hours is 20 hours a week. It's the minimum. And then it gets more hours the older you get, but it's still less than in many countries. In Europe or in the world.
In Finland, it's individual teachers who decide.
So 20 hours a week, basically, 5 days a week, 4 hours.
Yeah.
So get there by 8, you're done by lunch.
Right.
That's it. That's all you need.
How the curriculum is taught, including how much technology should feature in their classrooms.
Me tehdään sellaista pyramidiprojektia, missä nyt me kirjoitetaan hieroglyfeillä meidän nimet paperille ja sitten me tehdään Classroomista tehtäviä.
11-year-old Minttu Latumaki asks to leave class to work at the school's own student-run cafe.
You can go.
Wow.
Yeah, that's okay. Shut your books.
Hello. Hello. 1 cake for the cameraman, 1 cake for me, and 2 coffees. How much is it?
€2 and 60 cents.
How much change?
€2 and 40 cents.
Ketos. Perfect. Is there a tip jar? Do you have tips?
No.
No tips. Okay. In Finland, school lunches, like books and excursions, are free. The kids select what they want, sit down with their friends and teachers to eat before they clean up after themselves. The children rug up again to play outside. Some play a raucous version of soccer, some play basketball, while others wait for the hockey rink to open. There are plenty of options for bad weather days too.
The facilities in this school are just amazing. Outside we saw an ice skating rink, and in here where the kids can play at lunchtime, there's a ping pong table.
Yeah, a pool
table. And in here for the cold winter days, they've got a room full of bean bags and couches.
These are nice.
There's even a PlayStation in the corner.
It seems like it's
Chilling.
such a rich school.
Man.
You must get more money than other schools.
No, we don't. It saves money for everyone, actually. They
Right.
take and borrow books.
In Finland, schools are not allowed to raise private funds or to charge fees from parents. All schools are equitably funded from taxation.
And in our system, everything is free for the students, actually. We don't collect any money from the parents.
We want our schools to be equal and have the equal opportunities to arrange the education. So therefore also the finance system need to be equal and treat equally all the schools.
Ja sitten tuossa tulee 16.
Mintu Latumaki's older brother Levi is in year 7, and this afternoon he's got maths.
We have like the last chapter before we have the next exam.
There are regular exams in Finland, but the results of these tests are not published and shared.
We have national tests, but the big difference is we don't compare schools that this is not good school, this is bad school. We just use the information that we evaluate ourselves.
But perhaps the single biggest difference in Finnish education is the standard of teaching. Levi's maths teacher, Una Arnes, speaks 5 languages and has postgraduate qualifications.
So every one of us, we have to have a master's degree to be teachers. So like
True.
for example, me, I'm math and
I can see that. I can see
chemistry
that
and
journey.
physics teacher.
In Finland, a career as a
they got
teacher
one.
is highly sought after.
To enter the studies in university, actually, it's really hard.
Hey, can you imagine being black and Finland?
take something like 10%
Yeah,
to
it
study
gets probably a small population.
teaching. If you really want to be a teacher, it can't be your second or third.
One thing I keep in mind about these other countries, you know, they have very strict immigration policies. So you know, most people gonna be the same. Like
they're a lot more homogenous, especially the Nordic countries.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Apart from I guess Sweden.
Right. So yeah, so it's gonna be like this. Like, if you had to think at one point, America was the same way until the Civil Rights Movement when they snuck in the Immigration Act. The diversity camp was sometimes heard Finland. So yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's an interesting. Oh, really? I have a friend from Finland. Ah, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, that's what's up.
But it's interesting because the more homogenous a country, of course, the stronger is going to be, and it might sound away, but
in a way, it do weaken the nation.
Right. There's more diversity because that's part of what they said made Rome fall, because you're spread out with all these different people who do not share the same identity.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a negative of having, you know, the freedom of religion and the different races and whatnot. I mean, but like I say, most times everybody was separate.
Yeah.
You know,
but that's the thing. That's what happens when you try to conquer so much, because you're over these different groups of people.
You know, you think about Christianity.
Just letting them be.
It's funny because you think about Christianity, for example, and they push the all-inclusive doctrine. You know, like God loves everyone, which you know He loves everyone, but at the same time, you go back and read the Tower of Babel. What did Yahweh do? He separated them.
He separated nations.
He didn't make them all inclusive.
Right.
Okay, no problem. He the one that separated them out.
Right.
He created the different languages.
Right. Exactly.
You know, so it's like, oh no, man, this way of looking at it.
Or I don't know what kind of option. It has to be your first.
I believe that they know what is the best for our children. I'm not a teacher, I don't have that education, so we don't interfere their work.
You see, they trust the teachers. Here
In
we don't.
Finland, there's little anxiety about finding the right school for your child.
We trust that they have very good school, so we don't need to do any research work or...
I think that is not a question
No,
in
no.
Finland.
Finland is a vastly different country with a tiny, homogenous society.
Which we just mentioned.
Right, exactly.
But its education success must surely offer some lessons for Australia.
I would like to say that try to build the system that you trust the people.
And its investment in teachers seems an obvious place to begin.
The society respects the teachers. It means also the parents respect the teachers. And
Welcome,
they don't
Sai.
question
Yeah, thanks for the follow.
teachers, and that's in Finland a really huge thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it was interesting because he was talking about, you know, building a society where you trust the people. How much trust do we have in America?
None at
Anywhere.
all. Yeah, right. None at all. Well, you said how they
Right.
treat us, though. We see the track record.
No, I'm talking about even amongst each other.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, overall, man, it's
Hey,
sad.
but the whole country was built on wickedness from the get-go.
Yeah,
so,
that is true. So how can you trust it when it's built on people's blood?
And I thought about it again. Remember, it says in the end in the Bible as well that everybody gonna go back to their own land, right?
Exactly.
So it's gonna be that way. And just because it's separate doesn't mean that people like would hate each other and anything like that. Like we could be separate and still have love and respect for one another in the culture. You know?
And matter of fact, that separation is what creates different cultures that you're able to enjoy.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
Why would you go to Greece or Ghana if it was the same way, same as America?
That's why I chose Cuba over Mexico. You know what I mean? I want to see something totally different because
they're not influenced by.
Because like the tourist spots that the American own now,
Right.
so they control the money. So it's like going to another America. I want to see something totally different.
It's like going to America, but more tropical with super.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I want to see something totally different. You know. All right, we got to go into our. Well, the Bible says people.
Yeah, in Revelation.
Yeah, Revelation said, in the end, he said the door of Babylon will fall, and the same way people got here be the same way we go back home.
Right.
So of course, in our case, we got here by. That's a good question.
I don't remember specifically where. I know it's mentioned in Revelation. I think it was either Jeremiah or Isaiah, one of them.
Yeah, because they
There's a
got
couple places
prophecies.
real
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't find it for you, and I will leave it in. And I hit you up in Discord.
Yeah.
But it goes in detail. Same going back by Spanish ships and everything. Like it goes in. It had detail.
I'm talking about the ships at Tarshish.
You're right, Tarshish, which is like
Spain.
which is around the Spain area. Yeah, so you can tell what type of ships are going back on and everything.
Mhm.
So like pretty much everything that happened in the beginning happens in the end. So same way.
You gotta think when the slave trade started, everybody thinks about the England because we're all speaking English, but the ones who really started the slave trade were Spain and Portugal.
Yeah,
it was Tarshish.
Right.
People of the Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah, right. And also reparations are also mentioned. So like the same way everybody knows the story of Moshe and there's like people going out of Egypt, right, out of captivity,
where they borrowed the money.
Right, yeah. These are ex-slaves. So like if you go back and read it, they didn't leave empty-handed. They left with gold and a whole bunch of others. They left with their reparations.
Right.
You know, because the Egyptian people just wanted them out of there. After the last plague, and they killed the firstborn child of these Egyptians.
They was done. They
were done. Y'all gotta leave. So like, you take our jewelry, you take our gold, whatever. And so you keep reading, you fast forward in that same book. If you remember, the same Israelites became rebellious and they built the golden calf.
Right.
Where did they get the gold from with the golden calf? These were ex-slaves.
Right.
They didn't own anything. Slaves are broke. You know what I mean? That's from the reparation they got from the Egyptians and our people, man, they idiots.
Right.
They turned into a false god.
Ignorant. Right.
Right. And of course, in the end, they had to powder down to a powder and to get rid of it. But same thing will happen in the end. The reparations is the land, like you're getting something of value.
Exactly.
So like a lot of people want reparations here. It doesn't make sense to have it here because if somebody give you U.S. dollars, you'll put it right back into the same economy that oppressed you.
Right.
You are financing your own oppression.
Exactly, and they're just going to be either getting it back,
Right.
They're gonna press you more.
Right. But the big deal back in the day about the 40 acres and the mule, you know, a lot of people don't talk about the acres, but they ain't think about the mule part. Right. The mules was to make your own income.
Exactly. Because
for farming,
you're able
you
to
feed yourself. You can do anything you want with that.
Right.
So, but if you just try to get cash now, and you gonna go back to the same economy that rules over you,
and heaven forbids the dollar falls.
Oh yeah, and then it's really worth nothing.
Right.
You know, so it's like, but you keep feeding the same system because like we one of the only people in the world that don't govern ourselves. We govern, like, you know who we govern by, and since we're the only non-white people that can't be deported.
Right, exactly.
So they can't deport us. So what they got to do to us? They had to kill us off. They got to throw us in prison. They got to, keep us from making babies. You know what I mean? So all these agendas are at play.
Right,
you know?
and Trudy, you definitely know that the dollar will fall. It's just a matter of time when.
Yeah, it had to fall.
And I'm curious to see how.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
or which will it be China or Russia? Who's going to be the first one to implement? Okay, we have this. Yeah. Now you guys can back away from the dollar.
Yeah, it'll be. I'll put my money on China and Russia. It's gonna be one of them, and I don't really want to say it's gonna be China first.
Oh yeah, China, because their whole social credit and
and then do currency backed by their bank.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I believe it's gonna happen. So you got to think about it's a real. I was talking to an older guy about this yesterday or this morning.
Yeah.
I was telling him, like, think about it. The capitalism had to have a slave class to survive. The slave class are the essential workers.
Right.
And they do everything they can to replace these essential workers. So now you go to a grocery store, you have self-checkout now.
Right.
You have self-driving cars now. You have to get your own security when you don't need a security guard there no more.
Right.
Fast food is becoming self-sufficient without people now. Like, McDonald's kiosks now.
Ain't that so?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you got all these things in there. So you take away all these jobs, what are these people going to do? You're not replacing them.
Right.
You know, so the same way, but this happened before. It happened before, with the sharecropping. Like after slavery, you had the sharecropping.
Right.
You got to do farming machines. We got farming machines. We don't need them out there picking cotton no more. So now you got all these black people who know what to do with them.
And that's the danger of these machines. I mean, even the story of John Henry.
Yeah.
You know, when you had that thing drilling through the mountain, and to me, I think it's a tragedy. You know, people think, oh, John Henry, he drilled through the mountain with and he beat the steam. Hey, John Henry died at the end of it. He died, and that piece of machinery went on.
Yeah, it went on through anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, these things are happening slowly but surely, and they try to figure it out. And that's why I go to another earlier show when America saw this being an issue. So back in the day, before the Civil War, they tried to ship us out to Liberia.
Yeah.
That was an American colony. They're like, yo, we gotta do something with these black folks because we built up the infrastructure. Now we don't need them no more, and we can't have them lingering around. They're taking all the jobs. Like, we're gonna do with them.
So do you think that mindset changed?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's still the same thing. The same thing still going on.
Right.
You know. Right. Exactly. They don't need. We don't need us anymore. They got to get rid of us somehow.
Right.
Because next thing you know, what's going to happen? You have a whole bunch of unemployed black people. They still got kids to feed. Crime that's going to go up.
Right.
I mean, things are going to happen. Things are going to get dangerous. So, yeah, and this is just us talking. So just imagine the country. They've probably been talking about this for decades now. Come with a plan to prevent these problems.
Yeah, generations, really.
Yeah, you know. But yes, I know we kind of went off a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got one more video to show about the Finland school system.
Here in the United States, we love to brag about being #1. Except when it comes to education, that is, where we regularly...
Yeah, exactly. If this thing was so dangerous and so deadly, why anybody at work?
Right.
You know, hey, look, Amazon, the slave class.
Right.
You know?
rank around 37th in the world.
A little? Yeah, ha ha ha, Jerry Bun.
Lucky we can spell USA well enough to chant it at sporting events.
Ma, this is funny.
What country does consistently rate among the best in the world in education? Finland. Apparently. That's right. This small Nordic country, best known for giving the world Nokia phones, Angry Birds, and awful heavy metal music, is actually a leader in world education. Not only does Finland have the highest high school graduation rate in Europe, but on...
Funny how Korea is #2. Czechoslovakia. I ain't see the U.S. anywhere.
Oh, right. Oh, no. We
international tests, Finnish students regularly rank near the top in reading, math, and science. And the Finns do this without overloading kids with endless hours of homework or turning school into a mindless drudgery.
Bueller.
Bueller. So why does Finland have
the most ass-kicking educational system on earth?
Here are the 5 reasons that set Finland apart. Reason number 1, no child gets left behind, literally. Finland provides all families, particularly low-income families, with a vast social safety net. The Finnish government sends a baby box of supplies to every family with a newborn child.
Wow.
And then from there on, childcare is heavily subsidized, allowing most families to send their children to some form of early childhood education. Finland's public schools also concentrate on making sure that every student achieves basic proficiency in the subjects that they study. Whereas here in the US, students and school districts are expected to compete against one another for limited resources, inevitably creating a system of winners and losers. This difference in approach is one of the reasons why the achievement gap that exists between the rich and poor in American schools is smaller in Finland than anywhere else in the world. Reason number 2, they're just like more chill, man. Finnish children don't even start school until they turn 7, and once they're in school, they get almost triple the amount of recess time as American students. They're rarely assigned homework until high school, and they almost never take standardized tests. In fact, Finnish students are only required to take 1 standardized test, and that's not until the end of high school. Reason number 3, teachers are actually, get this, respected. Becoming a teacher isn't easy in Finland. There are only 8 universities that offer the master's programs required to earn a teaching credential, and only 1 in 10 applicants get accepted. So it's no surprise that teachers in Finland receive roughly the same level of respect as doctors and lawyers. Plus, thanks to powerful unions, Finnish teachers only spend 4 hours a day in the classroom and take 2 hours a week for professional development. They also don't have to deal with merit pay, which has been the cause behind many high-profile cases here in the US of teachers and administrators cheating on standardized tests. Reason number 4,
like that big
they
scandal in
believe
Atlanta.
that less is more. And I'm rhyming now. Finns believe that when it comes to education, patience, hands-on learning, and focusing on problem solving are more important than listening to lectures, mindless test preparation, and memorization of information that students will promptly forget as soon as they leave the exam room. I know, it's a really crazy concept, right? And then Finnish teachers don't race through lessons to cram as much information as possible into students' heads so that the students can then spit that information back out on a standardized test. Instead, they give priority to moving slowly and taking as much time as necessary to thoroughly investigate fewer topics, but in much greater depth. Reason number 5, they have fewer social ills.
And you do have a point, something with America being too large to federally funded, but I mean, the government's able to fund the military.
Yeah.
So much money.
They can do it. They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You gotta think about it. Like I said, I mean, every first world nation needs a slave class. If you build and educate all these children up, who would want to join the military?
Exactly.
They could be an engineer or a lawyer. You know what I mean?
And man, and it's interesting, man, because with the Finnish school systems, they focus so much on problems, building the mind in different ways, so that the student is equipped to actually solve problems in this, that, and the third. But man, I remember in school, man, what they would do, they would get a PowerPoint, and that's why my handwriting looks the way it does, because
it's just horrible, people.
It's not that bad.
It's horrible.
It's weird looking. But man, I had to write fast, because what they would do, they would have a PowerPoint. They'd be like, okay, we're just gonna take notes.
Yeah.
You had to write down everything on screen. Write down everything, and that was class.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
They had a test.
Yeah, you have a test.
Every few days, you have a test.
America doesn't want to promote critical thinking, so
at all.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if they really wanted to, I mean, you see some of these other nations, they imagine, okay, I mean, you can put a system, you can put a system in place for anything,
exactly.
You know, but they don't want to, because like I say, I mean, you need a slave class for this country to operate, unfortunately.
Right.
Finland may not be the socialist paradise every Bernie Sanders voter dreams about, but it's pretty close. Almost everyone in Finland is middle class, so income inequality is not nearly the problem there that it is in the US. Almost all Finnish kids come to school well-fed, rested, and ready to learn. There are no metal detectors, no cops patrolling the school hallways, and certainly none of this. Finland also has far fewer immigrant students, which is kind of like Donald Trump's dream, I guess. Only 1 in 40 students in Finnish schools has immigrant parents. Compare that number to the US public schools, where that figure is 1 in 5. That means there are not nearly as many kids in Finland's schools who are trying to learn math, science, and history in a completely new language, all while also trying to learn that new language itself. So should we in the US just admit that the Finns know education better than we do and go ahead and abandon our system and adopt theirs? Of course not. That's ridiculous. For one thing, where would we find enough teachers who speak Finnish? What we should admit is that when it comes to education, we just don't have all the answers, and if we do, we probably cheated to get them. There's plenty we can learn from countries like Finland that do things very differently, but have a proven track record of achieving better results. We just have to be more open to what educational innovators are doing around the globe. If we could only stop shouting, "We're number one," long enough to listen for a change.
And that's something.
Right.
So yeah, we show you the flaws in the American system with the school to prison pipeline, but I didn't want to end off showing that a couple of schools in other places that seem to get it right.
Right.
You know, whatnot.
Because you don't just want to point out the problem; you want to point out certain solutions, even though they're not gonna choose solutions.
Right, but they just know that solutions do exist.
Right, exactly.
It's possible. Right, America just choose not to do it. So. Once again, I apologize for tonight that we're not on YouTube. We are going to upload this show onto YouTube. We lost our streaming rights right now. So I got to file a claim or something with YouTube. So I'll try to do that tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Also, like, subscribe here on Twitch.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, because, even before all this happened, we were on Twitch regardless. So
exactly.
Yeah, so thankfully we were already on Twitch and made an easy transition to switch platforms when we needed to. So it was already set up over here as well.
Right.
Which is cool. You got like I said, you got the Discord link in the chat. To join the Discord. You can reach out to us between shows. Our plans to be back on Thursday night to cover the last presidential debate. It should be an entertaining one.
Oh yes.
Just because I heard this time they changed the rules where they can mute the mics. If Trump goes over his time.
Bro, ain't that something?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
We'll go over that, and then for next week, we're working on next week's shows now. So we got some cool stuff lined up. And anything else I'm missing?
I think that's about Patreon.
Yeah, we can show you Patreon. I wish I had a link in the Twitch. It's on our YouTube. But anyway, we will show you our Patreon. If you want to support the channel, we appreciate it. Because as you can see, we can use it because we keep getting banned on different platforms. So spreading this knowledge out here. So anyway, hope y'all have a great night, and we catch you on Thursday. Shalom.
Shalom, y'all.
Every week, we take the time and resources to search the internet, dig through articles, and compile videos to expose the false narratives of Black history and topics that affect the Black community. We then share and walk you through our research live twice a week on YouTube to give you a different perspective that you won't find anywhere else. If you enjoy our production, please consider supporting our Patreon. Patreon allows fans of the show to contribute a monthly sum to push our show even further. All supporters will be invited to join our Discord as we discuss ideas and topics for future shows. To learn more about Patreon, check out the link below. Please continue to like and share our videos. Whether you're able to give or not, we appreciate you for being here with us. Shalom.